Hello people of the internet, and welcome to a special Halloween edition of the Film Noir Reviews. I am your host, Andres Perez, aka Kaiji Noir, and here with me, of course, is none other than Mr. Matthew Denian.
Hey everybody out there, happy Halloween. I hope you guys enjoy this review Andres and I are about to do.
By the time this video comes out, I'm sure all of you have enjoyed the re-uploaded Godzilla Heisei 90s, 80s reviews that me, David, Brayden, and I have, put together for you guys. So far, as of now, we're about near the halfway point of the uploading reviews, and so far the amount of support and reception that people have to these older videos of mine have been very gratifying, I would say. I'm so happy that people still enjoy these reviews that I put a lot of hard work into so many years ago, or at least 3 years ago. And by now we are probably, by the time this video comes out, it'll be very close to Halloween. And so Matt actually had a very good idea of checking out a particular short film that is both a horror-centric as well as a film noir-esque type of story. And that is DC Showcase The Spectre. Now, for those who don't know, or maybe for those who aren't really comic book fans, DC Comics, and along with Warner Brothers Animations, starting in, I want to say, 2008 or 9, or maybe 2007. I don't know. It was like the late 2000s. They started pumping out animated movie after animated movie, all with their own, all each based on rather popular stories in DC's comic book history. The first one being Superman Doomsday, based off of the death of Superman, and from then on they would make movies based off of Justice League, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Batman, and as time would go on, it eventually kind of dwindled down to Batman, Superman, and Justice League.
Right.
And even after that, they eventually started making stories based off of the New 52, which was like a reboot of the DC Comics made around like 2011. And so everything kind of got streamlined. The beautiful thing about these standalone DC animated original movies is that each of them had their own unique art style and sometimes their own voice cast. So these movies were never really meant to be connected to each other. It just kind of took place. Most of them took place in a very general DC universe where you can just have your story go in whatever direction you want. Kind of like the comics, essentially.
Right. And the DC Showcase in particular was a series of shorts that they would put as like a bonus. Add-on, a bonus, yeah. Right. Additional content to the DVDs when they came out. And I think this was the first one we were just discussing, right? That the Spectre was the first of the DC Showcases to start. Right, yes.
I feel like the DC Showcase was sort of like at the height of the DC animated original movies. They came out around the time where they were at their peak, I want to say. The Spectre, in particular, came out, did it connected to, in particular?
Justice League Crisis on Two Earths from 2010.
Right, which was the movie where the Justice League fight an evil version of themselves from an alternate universe, where the good guys are bad guys and the bad guys are good guys. So, in a way, it kind of makes sense that their first DC Showcase short would be based on a member of the Justice League, I want to say. I want to say maybe because, to be honest, I'm not that familiar with the Spectre character. In fact, the only comic I've read of the Spectre was Alex Ross's, what was it called? Why am I blanking
Kingdom
out
Come?
Kingdom Come, yes. Once again, my tradition of having really bad memorization of names continues to this day. So yes, Alex Ross's Kingdom Come, where the Spectre played an important role of taking the main human character and taking him through history throughout all of the events of Kingdom Come. And
yeah,
go ahead.
The Spectre is actually an old-time DC character. He was a member of the Justice Society of America, which predates the Justice League from like the 1940s.
Yeah, you know what? I think I remember seeing the Justice Society in an episode of Batman the Brave and the Bold, where Batman, who is the leader of the newest incarnation of the Justice League, would invite the Justice Society to meet the Justice League.
Right. In fact, the Crisis on Two Earths story was actually in the comics originally when the Justice League met the Justice Society, and back then they were on two different Earths.
Right, yeah. So you would have like the Golden Age Flash be like a very different universe from the Silver Age Flash.
Right, right.
Yeah. So yeah, the Spectre is definitely a very old character, and I'm sure he's a well-respected character to this day. And as far as I know, he is sort of like this Grim Reaper-esque individual who tends to deal out punishment to those he deems as unworthy of living.
Right. Specifically in the DC universe, he serves kind of the same role as Ghost Rider in the Marvel universe, where he's the spirit of vengeance. Although, like, where Ghost Rider is maybe just kind of like a demon, in later iterations of the Spectre, it's revealed he's almost like kind of the right hand of God himself, if you will. So the Spectre ranks up very high in the DC hierarchy of powerful beings. Although, which makes it interesting that he also, I always thought it was cool that he also, though, interacts like on a personal sort of like almost street level with what's going on, which is one something you'd see from like the Marvel's counterpart might be like the Living Tribunal, who's only going to deal with things at like a very cosmic level, like the Infinity Gauntlet, whereas the Spectre deals with, murder and such, which is what we'll go over in this very noirish type short that they did.
Very true, yeah. And to wrap up the sort of like history of the DC showcase, they eventually made shorts based off of Jonah Hex, Green Arrow, and eventually Catwoman. And so later on they would have a collection of these DC showcase films, and they would include one more, which is the biggest one, Superman Shazam, The Return of Black Adam, which was, I think, 20 minutes long, as opposed to most of these shorts, 10-minute runtime. And to be honest, I'm a big fan of most of these shorts. Some of them, they were kind of average for me, like Catwoman. But with Superman Shazam, I loved it. It serves as like a really great sort of mini origin of Shazam, while also having, a cool Superman, throw in Superman for good measure. I feel like the Killing Joke would have worked so much better had it been an extended DC showcase like Superman Shazam.
Yeah, I think you're right. To have done it that way as opposed to what they ended up doing. And the Jonah Hex one's really good too, I think.
Yeah, that ending, man, that was like, whoa.
Yeah. So
I feel like if you can somehow feel sorry for your villains, that's like a sign of like really strong storytelling right there.
Yeah, which they pulled off in that one expertly.
Yeah.
Maybe we do that one later. Maybe do a review on that one specifically later because it is so cool.
Yeah. Anyways, they've stopped. Eventually, DC or Warner Brothers Animation stopped making DC showcases around like the mid to that 2010s when they started like boiling down all their animated movies down to New 52 adaptations, and they kind of like streamline all the art styles, all the writing, all the behind the scenes stuff. So now the whole diversity, artistic diversity among all of the standalone films was lost. And I think that the animated movies lost a lot of their charm. I know there's some good ones. I keep hearing that there are good ones, like Justice League Dark or Suicide Squad Hell to Pay or Death of Superman or the Constantine movie that just came out recently. I don't know. I just lost that I lost that interest in checking out these movies once they started going the New 52 route and all the movies started being more connected. Occasionally there's a movie like The Killing Joke or Gods and Monsters or Gotham by Gaslight. Those I'm still interested in because those are like real adaptations, I want to say, or adaptations or interesting takes on established characters, whereas all of these, they're like pseudo adaptations where it's like they're adapting elements from popular stories, but they're all tying into this universe, which I feel like bogs down on and takes away from the adaptation aspect of the movies.
Right. I do think it's, like you said, some of them were pretty good. I did enjoy Superman Doomsday, I thought was pretty good. Justice League Dark was good, as you said. Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, I thought was very good. But when they have to have like the connection to them, it does water it down a little bit as opposed to the standalones. You can really kind of go crazy. Flashpoint, I think we talked about Flashpoint Paradox being originally one of the last standalones, was really well done, which is fantastic. And then because you're a little more free, you're not tied down with continuity, which is one thing I liked about the DC showcases, because they're all these short little 10-minute standalones. They're not.
They're never meant to be
anything
more than that. Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like, it's really apt that, you and I enjoyed the more standalone aspect of the older DC animated original movies. And so at the height of these standalone movies, we have these standalone shorts, each with their own very unique take on these characters. And so let's jump right in then to perhaps one of the best ones, and that is the Spectre. Now, the Spectre apparently is like, I'm not sure how close it is to the story of the comics, but for the Spectre in this little 10-minute short film, we follow, what is his name? Detective Jim Corrigan. Yes, played by Gary Cole. And he is investigating the killing of a successful film producer, Foster Brenner. And the reason why he is investigating this case that he is technically not supposed to be a part of is because he actually had a past relationship with Foster's daughter. Amy? Not really sure how to pronounce her name. I'm not sure if it was.
I think it's Amy. It's just spelled weird. Yeah.
Okay. It's probably one of those like Hollywood things where they want to spell things differently for the sake of being different.
Right. Aim spelled like you're aiming a gun with two E's. Right. So then A-E, right, and he had a relationship with her, and Amy was played by Alyssa Milano in this as well.
I've heard that name before. Where is she from?
Oh, geez, man, I forget I'm much older than you. Oh, God, I grew up watching her. She was on Who's the Boss originally,
and then she was on. I remember
Charmed.
Yeah,
right. She's done a few movies. So.
That's what I definitely like about these DC projects, that they managed to get a really good voice cast. And I think Andrea Romano, I think that was the name of the voice director.
Yes.
Yeah, and she worked a lot on the DC animated, the DCAU, the DC animated universe, like Batman, the animated series, Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond. And I think, I could be wrong here, but I think she also played a big part in these earlier movies until she eventually retired.
Yeah, she did. So she did a lot of the voice casting, and she really got good actors to do these voice parts, which helped out the story a lot. So,
So we have Jim Corrigan, who is investigating the case, finding out who killed his former lover's father, and that involves him taking on the persona of the Spectre. In this story, he's already the Spectre, so this is just like another day in the life of the Spectre, who is taking on a more personal case. So he's like a regular detective by day, bringer of justice by night.
Right. Which they don't even tell you to the end of the story that he's him. So if you knew he was a Spectre to start, it's what's going on. But if you didn't, because the Spectre is kind of a lesser known character, I think it does kind of add on, and it almost seems like it's two separate things going on in the story, with the detective doing his work and then the Spectre doing his stuff too.
Right. I guess from one of my biggest critiques is that if this movie was a bit longer, it being only like 11 or 12 minutes long, I feel like we could have gotten more the detective aspect of Jim Corrigan's character, because I feel like we could have gotten a really neat balance between like the detective aspect and the Punisher like the vigilante aspect of this character, where it's like he immediately in this film's short runtime, he immediately finds the people involved in the murder, and eventually sees that these people get their comeuppance. And so we don't know how he finds out about these people, but I can only assume that he does his detective skills to find out who are the suspects and whether or not they're guilty. And then he goes and meets them and brings them to justice.
Right, which would have been cool, but I think, like I said, it's a part of it is that there are so many people don't know that Jim Corrigan is the Spectre, so you don't get to see that. You just kind of cut from Corrigan's going to look into it to the Spectre doing his part, and then at the end they kind of give the reveal in a kind of neat way, I feel like.
I guess so, yeah. I never really saw it as a reveal, but now that you mention it, it does work as a sort of reveal that the detective and the ghostly apparition are the same individual, and that at some point the Jim died and was resurrected as the Spectre.
Right, right. And as we'll talk about, I guess, in a minute or so, one of the things that they really played up well in this that I wish DC would do more, and I'm hoping they do more with like their Swamp Thing and their streaming service, is to play up the horror aspect of the Spectre.
Yes, which is why
really
that's the reason why we decided to bring this up for Halloween. Yeah, I really love all the hints and nods to past horror films, like, you know, especially when you've got like a story set around the death of a movie producer.
Yes, which was a brilliant way to incorporate some of the aspects that they do.
Right, and let's see, I remember there was a reference to, there was the puppet from Goosebumps. I think his name was Slappy. Or maybe he could have been a reference to that puppet from that one episode of The Twilight Zone.
That was my thinking too, because one thing we hadn't mentioned is that it sort of seems like this movie set in the 1970s. I took it as they don't give it a time frame.
Right, they're really going into that 70s aspect, and it's really interesting because I don't think we've really seen a lot of 70s noir style. Everyone tries to go for like the 40s and 50s.
Right.
So this one was a really neat change in tone compared to all the previous homage. Noir homage projects, including our own.
Yes, including after hopefully get done soon.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what happens at the movie studio, or is that too spoilery? Or
let's see. So this is obviously this is a very short film, and so there's like not so much we can go into without actually spoiling everything. So in order for us to continue analyzing this short, we need to go into spoilers. So to give like a very quick review, this is a fantastic short, a lot of style. Oh, I guess we can talk about the style here. So you mentioned it's very 70s. It's got like the very funky score, a little bit of jazz in there. You got the right sort of horror music. The look of it, there's like constant film scratches everywhere to give it that rather like 70s grindhouse effect.
Right, I was gonna say it's like a grindhouse movie almost.
Yeah.
Yes, the filming of it.
And for the look of the 70s film, there's like a lot of overexposure of sunlight, so it gives like this really nice yellow tone to everything. It's a very, very beautiful looking short film.
Yeah, which they put a lot into that. You think about it, it's only an 11-minute film for them to make sure they capture that aspect. I thought was fantastic, and really showed the care that these people were putting into the movie who did it.
Very true indeed. And I feel like this would mark the standard, like the gold standard for all their stuff. And I'm really glad that they put so much effort in making this rather obscure character to, I guess, casual comic fans such as myself, and made someone like me interested in this guy's story.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And in fact, because this is like just a day in the life of the Spectre, and it's meant to like show off this sort of status quo of Jim Corrigan, I would be interested. This could totally work as like a pilot to like a full-on series. In fact, any of these DC animated shorts could work as pilots to like animated shows or series or movies to big. It could lead into a bigger project down the line. But I'm very glad that these are like both open-ended yet still kind of standalone at the same time.
Right.
Where like they leave the universe open for more stories to tell.
Yeah. I do wish I'd go back to it a little bit, though, especially for the Spectre one. It was so well done, and the way they you don't see too many horror cartoons. I feel like this was a definite horror animated.
Very
cartoon.
True. And if you know me, I love when they try to like mix genres. In this case, there's got like the crime drama, the crime thriller, and the detective noir stuff, and the horror centric vigilante justice superhero stuff.
Yeah, and for you specifically, just real quick, there's even a little bit of kaiju in there. So
absolutely, yes.
Cover it, so
yeah, it's covering all of my favorite bases.
Yeah.
It's got monsters, it's got superheroes, it's got detectives, it's got everything. Yeah. I love it. So, for a short 12-minute animated production, I would give this easily a 5 out of 5.
I totally agree. I'd say 5 out of 5 for this one, without a question.
Absolutely. So, to go into spoilers from here on out, let's talk about the kills. So, there are 3 individuals who are involved in the murder of Foster Brenner. The first guy being a special effects artist, one of the best in the film industry, apparently. And so, I guess he had a grudge against the film producer because he didn't let him work on his movies or whatever. Seems kind of petty, but hey, this is Hollywood. There's a lot of extreme personalities out there.
Right, true.
And so yeah.
Do you want to do him first?
Yeah, he's just working in his studio, and that's when the Spectre comes out and brings all of his creations to life. So all of the animatronics, all the puppets, all of the costumes, they just come to life as like real monsters, and we get ourselves like a bevy of references.
Right, there's like a reference that the one character is clearly supposed to be like Nosferatu, and there's a great scene where he grabs a pipe and he knocks the mannequin's head off, and you see like kind of like the wires pop out, and then a new head just comes back up through it. And I should say, like, it starts with the Spectre appears as the murdered man, and he's like, "We killed you," and then he says,
that's all he needs to know that he's guilty.
Yeah, and then the Spectre turns into the Spectre and then brings them all to life. And yeah, we get like a Nosferatu he knocks the head off of. There's like a werewolf that looks like from the Howling werewolf, kind of, with like the big elongated face.
There's the girl from The Exorcist who vomits all over him.
Right, they do that whole walking crab walk backwards thing, jumps on him and vomits on him.
Ooh, there's Jason from, I think, Friday the 13th Part 2, where he has like the bag over his head with the one exposed eye.
Yes, which I don't think they could have gotten away with the hockey mask. So that one. To me, almost made it better though, because like it was like, oh wow, that's cool. That's like original Jason showing up here as a guy stumbles down the stairs. There's like the kind of looking the doctor who's like the covered in blood. I couldn't replace him, but there's quite a few. There's a zombie. There's a Frankenstein creature, and then do you want to talk about the big one, if you will?
Oh yeah,
that ends it. That was great.
Right, he runs into like a bigger room. He walks down. He falls down the stairs. He runs into a bigger room. He closes the doors, and behind him is a gigantic life-size mechanical King Kong that comes to life, and I suppose eats him.
Yeah, which was great. I totally, being the kaiju fan that I am, and like you, the Noir fan, when I saw all those things come together, I was like, this is fantastic. We just we got a pretty cool like Noir story, and then we get the Nosferatu and the Exorcist and Jason, and we top it off with King Kong ending this guy. This is great. And it was a cool way to do it where they didn't like really break any copyright laws, because you could tell who the characters were supposed to be, but they also did it where they were like animatronics, which was cool. And to me, I thought this must be what it'd be like if Stan Winston's Creature Shop when he was live came to life.
Right. I do have to wonder, what is a life-size animatronic Kong doing in a studio? How would they get him out exactly?
Yeah, I don't know. He is kind of like in a hangar, so it's weird, like an airplane hangar. But I didn't care. It was one of those moments like in Ready Player One where you get Gundam, and you're like, I don't even care if this kind of doesn't fit. It's just so cool.
I don't care if it's just a blatant nostalgic reference. I still love it.
Yeah. And then so that guy's thing, and then we get to the second murderer, who's a stuntman, which also had like a very cool horror nod in it as well.
What was the name called? Christine or something? I know it's based off
Christine.
I think it was based off of like a Stephen King novel about a car that comes to life and it's able to repair itself.
Actually, there's two, I feel like, Stephen King references in this. And the first is that the guy is a stunt driver, and it looks like he's driving the car from Duel to begin with.
Okay.
Which is Duel is it's one of his lesser known films, but it's kind of got like an orange car, and like he's being tracked down by a tractor trailer that he pisses off to kill him. So the car looks like that, and like I thought that might have been a nod, but then yes, clearly. So as he's trying to drive to Mexico, he looks
trying to escape with the money.
Right. He looks in his rearview mirror and sees a Spectre in the back seat. And then he turns around, the Spectre's not there. And then you get this cool scene of the Spectre coming up alongside the car. Yeah. And the dude like tries to shoot the Spectre, and he goes right through him. And he's like, leave me alone. And he goes like, as you wish, but you can't escape your fate. And then what we get is the car kind of throws the dude out, which
He should have been already dead at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's my one small complaint, like, as you rewatch it, like, the dude's going over 100 miles per hour and he lands face first. And then, he's still...
His car, like, smashes into the ground. After like, the Spectre opens up a ramp, the guy flies off the ramp and then, lands head first. He busts out the window as the car is, like, smashing into the ground.
But thankfully he doesn't die, because then we get a cool scene, which, as you said, is directly from Christine, where the car's all busted up and just puts itself back together.
And then goes on a murder spree to get him.
Yeah, like the guy climbs up the ramp that the Spectre made, and the car just makes its way over top of it to land on top of him. So again, the horror buff me was like, this is so cool. Like all these references.
It does kind of raise a little problem with the Spectre, in that it's like, I can imagine how difficult it would be to make an ongoing story about him, where he is so overpowered, like nothing can kill him, and he can like do anything to kill these people. So it's like, I am curious to know how exactly his comics did work in the past.
Well, he wasn't quite so overpowered when he first showed up. That kind of would come later. And he would only usually have limited runs, I think, because of that. But that's why when he's done at his best, he's done as a horror story as opposed to necessarily like a superhero. So in his short, it works out because he's almost like on par maybe with like the Cenobites from Hellraiser in terms of his power and what he can do. Yeah. So you do need him in short bursts where he's like taking out these bad guys in creative ways, because otherwise, like you said, there's really no villain that can challenge him. In fact, in the comics, you need like the Anti-Monitor or some galaxy destroying villain who's a challenge for him. Right.
I'm assuming like a lot of his like challenge just comes from like more personal stuff from his human life.
Yes, yeah, like more the Jim Corrigan trying to balance exactly what the Spectre's doing. So
right, because I did like what they were doing in Kingdom Come, where he's been the Spectre for so long that he's actually lost his humanity. Rarely is he ever Jim Corrigan, so he actually relies on a human to help him be his sort of conscience when deciding whether or not humanity deserves a second chance to survive.
Right. In fact, the Kingdom Come kind of plays it up almost like where Dr. Manhattan and Watchmen needed Laurie to be his conscience.
Complete with the fact that he is totally naked underneath that hood.
Yes, complete. But thankfully, we don't see Spectre Wang like we do for Dr. Manhattan. So,
right. And in this short, apparently, funny enough, you never see his lower half of his body.
No, which I think like lends to the Spectre part of it, where it's supposed to be kind of like a ghost.
Yeah.
And
also, maybe people might not take him as seriously when they see him with green underwear.
Right. True. He's just more scary as being ethereal, sort of. And then we got to one of my favorite things, because I know you like it too, was the femme fatale in the story.
Right, and of course, you can never trust the femme fatale in these sorts of stories.
No. So we get back to the point where Corrigan now, and not the Spectre, because for the first two people who are accomplices, we just see the Spectre shows up. Corrigan shows up to the daughter's house, and she basically offers to, run away with me. I still love you.
I have money now.
Right, I have money. And he says, like, no dice. And there's a cool scene where then the money just pops open from the suitcase and flies out. Yeah. And he basically explains to her that knows that was her who had let these guys into her father's house to kill him.
Right.
And she kind of just remorselessly says, like, well, that's too bad. And takes out a gun and he goes to shoot him. And the bullets just, they don't show it go through him. It just starts cracking the window behind him, which I always thought was better than showing the bullets phase through him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of even more scary. It's like you see, like, it does literally nothing to him. There's like no sign of him. It's like he's not even there.
And what does he says something like, I left this world a long time ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he turns into the Spectre. And then I thought that was the most creative kills. What happens here, though? Did you want to go over and tell that one?
I do feel like, it's all of these sort of kills have been like very ironic twists to these individuals. You had the special effects person killed by his own creations. You had the stunt driver killed by his own car, and of course the greedy Hollywood celebrity being killed by her own greed by her own money. all just it's probably the most brutal one, because it's like it's not a very slow, fast like crushing blow, but rather it's just like being torn, sliced open by all these like razor sharp paper dollar bills, and she just like bleeds to death.
Right, she's basically paper cut to death, which, you know, if you ever get a paper cut, it's one of the most painful things in the world. Yeah. So you can imagine having that done until you die. And it's like this whirlwind of her money just going around slicing her to pieces.
And, like, you kind of like the tornado of money around her just turns red, and it's like, ooh.
Right, and to me it was like, dang, like at the beginning they made it feel like, you know, Jim might have still had some feelings for this girl, but I guess the Spectre's so ingrained in him that when he realizes that, you know, she's guilty, like, he doesn't just take her out, he brutally and
I guess
takes her out.
And I guess that's what that adds to the personal aspect. He's like, this is someone whose life I trusted, and
right.
And so I want to wish there was perhaps one scene where it's like Jim wanted to genuinely help her. Maybe he did at the beginning of the short, but I guess by the time he put it all together, it's like, well, you know, how dare you use me?
Right, exactly. Because he was trying to do that, and then it ends in a cool scene where you see the other police pulling up, like the police whose case actually was, and you're thinking like they're going to say something to Jim, and he just walks right through him, like he can't even see him, because, you know, he's revealed he's a Spectre at that point. And you know, so that's it. I really like this short. I'm glad we decided to review it. And
one last detail, I like that he stole his rival detective's car just to mess with him.
Yeah, just to be
because it seems like he doesn't respect that guy at all.
No. Because there is another detective who's officially assigned to the case. Jim just kind of shows up and
and steals his thunder.
Right. And like you said, the parts we do get with Jim are more like the police captain chewing his ass out for, like, you know, stay off of this case, Corrigan. It's whatever the other dude's case name is. We don't really get Jim doing the detective work.
Right. Which I previously mentioned that perhaps he did it off screen, all his detective work off screen, due to the limited time we have here.
Right. I'm sure he did. But yeah, I liked it as much as you did, and the way that they shot it. They did good, like I know we've talked about in past Noir reviews too, with like the shadows and stuff, I felt, even though this was an animated film. What did you think about those types of things?
I feel like when it needed to have, like we mentioned before, it's got like that overexposure of sunlight for the daytime scenes, but when it needs to, it really has the more horror-centric vibe in terms of not so much noir shadowing effects, but rather like the horror centric ones where you got these very dimly lit environments where there's only like one light source for most of these characters. And of course, whenever there's light, it's usually from a source of I would say danger. You have the light coming from the eyes of these animatronics. You got the headlights coming from the Christine car, and you've got, I would say, the lamp coming from, like, the lights from Amy's own bedroom, which is not so much horror centric, but it kind of shows the lit light. It's kind of like I'm not sure if there's any symbolic meaning behind the light in hers, but I noticed that as she is moved away from the light, that is when, like, the dollar bills swarm around her.
Right, I would say so. And one thing I liked, we talked about this in our previous two reviews, and you'd mentioned, like, you like the kind of blending of genres, is we felt that, like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit did a really good job of blending genres with, like, the kind of comedy of Looney Tunes and then the noir story. And then we felt that perhaps the Happy Time Murders really didn't grasp as much as we would have liked the blending of, like, Muppets with noir. But I do feel like this did a good job, which kind of makes like a nice sandwich of blending the horror with noir.
Right, and I feel like 70s noir, or like 70s detective dramas in general, I noticed like the 70s was definitely a very good time for like police shows and detective shows. And so I feel like they were really going more into that sort of direction. And it's like, it's a style we don't really see a whole lot of. And I'm very glad that we got the chance to see a modern animated take on this sort of alternate style of noir. Like, you know, we've had classic noir, we've had neo-noir, but we never had like 70s noir at all, very rarely. I would say this sort of noir that sort of came out around the time when like color filmmaking was sort of like almost everywhere at this point. And so that kind of led to also this sort of grungy vibe for it as well.
Right. And I definitely think for any fans who are like horror fans that haven't seen this yet, you will not be disappointed if you just want to see a horror short, right? I feel like
right,
the
absolutely,
same way.
Yeah. You want monsters, you want horror, you want a bit of like, detective, old school Hollywood sort of theming. You've got everything right here.
Right, and the cast was pretty good too. We talked about Gary Cole playing the Spectre and Jim Corrigan, and he's done a lot of different stories that he's been in a lot of different TV and movies. Like what did we just look up? He was Harvey Birdman, right? In Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
Oh, take the case.
Yeah. I said Alyssa Milano plays lead character. Oh, this whole thing was written by Steve Niles, by the way, which would make sense that it's a good horror story because Steve Niles is maybe most famous for doing like 30 Days of Night.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he also did the Giant Monster comic where it's kind of like a I don't know if you've read that or not, but it's like a blobbish monster that's just eating people, like a huge zombie. So he's done some horror stuff before, for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, 30 Days of Night being like one of his bigger ones that he's done.
I see then. Okay. Yeah, and I mentioned this before recording that when it came to Gary Cole, he's like one of those actors who has been consistently in a lot of work, like year after year. And so it's like you may not know him in any like big roles, but he's like seems to be one of those like very reliable actors that is always getting work.
Right.
He's always appearing in some things. He's always like that guy. You may not know him, but you might recognize him.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm looking at his face like, oh yeah, I've seen him before.
There was that one actor. For me, that guy is like that one actor who was in the Princess Bride.
Cary Elwes.
He's the guy who's like inconceivable.
Oh, that dude. Yeah, I can't remember.
Like you hear the voice, you automatically know who I'm talking about. Yeah. He was also the guy who had that cameo as like Mr. Incredible's boss from the first movie.
Yes.
We're supposed to help our people.
I think he's a dinosaur in Toy Story, right? Same guy.
I don't know if he's Rex as well. I don't know, but it wouldn't put it past me. But see what I mean? I don't know his name, but I know exactly who he is and his voice and everything.
Right. So anything else on this short before we...
Let's see. I'm not sure. Even though we've practically gone over everything that happens in the short, I feel like even with the whole description, you can still get a lot of, even like with us spoiling everything, you can still get a whole lot out of the short, knowing what happens simply by the fact that everything just looks so dazzling.
Right. And it's only, 11 minutes? So, it's well worth your time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. So, let's see. Oh, I think his name is Wallace Shawn.
Ah, there you go. Good job.
That's the guy he's my personal that guy. Yeah. So, let's see. Pretty much we have talked about everything we can about the Spirit. Thank you very much, Matt, for, bringing this up to me, and I feel like it was a great choice to talk about, especially during this spooktacular time of year.
Very good. Yes. My pleasure, and thank you for having me on, and thank you guys for listening to us as always.
Absolutely. So, as always, where can people find you, Matt?
On Facebook mainly at Matthew Denny is my author page, and Matt Denyon is my regular page. But please follow me there, and please follow both Andres and I on Kaiju versus Cancer on Facebook as well, of course.
Yeah, we've been taking a break, but we're still, even though you may not see the latest news on that, we are still in the process of creating the next, working on the next stage of our ongoing charity project.
Right.
Yes. Okay, and as always, you can follow my work, especially with my upcoming comic book, Primal Warrior Draco Azul. You can follow the Facebook page for that. You can follow me on Instagram. You can also check out my Society 6 shop, where I have a couple t-shirts and other things up for sale. And let's see. Oh, be sure to check out that other comic I worked on. What was it? Nagarayar, Kingdom of the Monsters by Garayan. The more attention that project gets, the more exposure Garayan and his awesome work receives. And there's nothing more satisfying than being able to spread more kaiju love around the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Please stick around for the upcoming upcoming annual Halloween live stream that I have coming up. And of course, as always, I am Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
I am Matt Denyon.
And until next time, everybody, take care.